Trey, thank you for doing this. We are live.
What's up? What's up?
Hey, finally, very nice to finally get a chance to talk to you. Appreciate you doing this. I appreciate you rushing home. For everybody out there, this is Trey Tints, Ohio Valley Autosport. Yeah?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
you're
sir.
out of Ohio, yeah?
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I came up in window tinting in Texas. Originally from Ohio. Parents are from Ohio, so I ended up back in Ohio, and it was really cool to kind of bring Texas style tinting up here.
So before we jump into this, first of all, thanks everybody for joining. I'm going to pull up the comments now so I can see any questions that get asked, and then I'll just relay the questions back to you. We did get a late start, so anybody watching this live, if you can share this on your page, share this to any of the tint groups, that'll help people who maybe don't realize that we're live yet join in. That adds to more questions, which adds to more fun. So appreciate any sharing, and we can jump right in. Trey, how long ago did you get started tinting?
I've been tinting since 96, 95, somewhere in that area. It's really hard to put a pinpoint, but I've been tinting professionally. Like I call myself a real tinner since I could tint a whole car by myself without any assistance from the tinner shop at the shop, and since I was about 15. So
and how did that start? Was it your first car that you? Was it your first car that you? Oh, you know what? Let me just make sure. Everybody's saying it's hard to hear you. Let me make sure. Hang on one second. Let me make sure that we have the audio sounding okay. I'm not sure why, because I hear you great. Hang on one second. I think I got this figured out. Thanks everybody for watching. Let me just get this audio situation figured out, and then we'll go live, or then we'll continue with the live. Hang on. Okay, Trey, if you could say something, and let me see what everybody has to say.
Yes. Hello. How's it going? Can you hear me better?
Let's see. Hang on one second. I think we got this figured out. Okay, I think we have this figured out. Everybody from this point on, if we could get a confirmation if you sound okay. I'm getting some confirmations you sound good.
Awesome.
So I think we're ready to go. All right, so you got started tinting about 25 years ago. Tell me again, how did you get started? What was the first reason you got film in your hand?
How did I get film in my hand? It was really a funny story. When I was really young, I was a problem kid, and big problem kid, like past the point of parenting. So my mother actually had to put me out, and a tinner took me in. Okay. And he opened a tint shop in the small town in Texas that we lived in. And I started working there, sweeping the floor, and they taught me how to do car stereos. When I was 14 and 15, I was installing stereo systems, at the shop after school and in the summers and things like that. But watching the tinners and seeing their paychecks, obviously I wanted to be a tinner. I didn't want to be a stereo guy, So I would do my stereo work, and then I'd run over and help the tinners and pick up their tint scraps and hand them tools. And we had this really cool tinner from Arizona that moved to Livingston. His name was Mark, and Mark took me he really took me under his wing and showed me literally every single thing that he knew. He poured a lot into me. So it was really cool because the guy that had took me in, Roger, he kind of really wanted me to stick with the mathematics stuff, the stereo systems, the speaker boxes, and I wasn't a finesse kind of kid. I was brilliantly smart when it came to numbers and paper and math and woodworking and that sort of thing. But when it came to, the finesse of window tinting, I cut myself more than I cut the film. It was actually, I burned myself with a heat gun. Like, it was such a disaster, me starting to learn how to tint, that there was no way anybody would have ever thought that I'd ever be any good at it. Like, really? It was bad. So Mark literally, and then we had this other tinner, his name was Bobby. Both of those guys, they kind of ran the store that I worked at, and Roger, he moved and opened a second store. So then the tinners really started really teaching me, because I spent all day, every day there with them. I was homeschooled. So I did my homeschooling at the shop, in between cars and not doing anything and waiting on customers. I kind of worked the front and did the stereo installs, and the tinners did the tint. And me and two tinners ran the store pretty much. So it was really cool to spend so much time with those guys, and neither of the which are with us anymore. And so that's actually what clearly the best thing about the tag that I wear. Mark's nickname, we nicknamed him Clearly the Best, because out of all the tinners that we had, he used to walk around, he's clearly the best, and that was a joke. And it actually turned into like a thing that we used to pick at him about. And so in remembering him and everything that he put into me, I started wearing that tag about 6 years ago or so. And just really, it's honestly because Mark lost his life over drugs. And it's a reminder of all that man knew and the brilliant man that he was, and my goodness, the talent that he had was completely wasted in the end. Obviously he put a lot into me and probably other tinners along his career and in his life. But in the end, it's a reminder to never let myself get there in all the success and turn over fast cash. It's really easy when you make 2-3 grand on a good summer day to go blow it on whatever and have way too much fun. And that's kind of always been keeps me level, and don't ever let myself lose, myself to anything, drugs or anything else for that matter. So that's what that's about. But so getting into tinning was not good for me though. It was a wreck, and those boys had a lot of patience and really spent a lot of time with me, and they gave me a life. I literally had nothing. I was a homeless kid that was bouncing from couch to couch, and without the tint and the knowledge that they gave me in this business, eventually I moved on from Cool Shades in that business into another business, and Texas Truck was the biggest change in my life, because they let me do everything. It wasn't like Cool Shades where it was, no, you can't do that. No, you don't know how to do that. It was, let's figure it out. If you can sell it, we're going to do it, and we'll figure out how to do it, and we'll get it done. So there's a lot of times, that blew up in our face, it didn't always work out so well, but the reward was always in the ones that it did. The first time I put 30 speakers on a side-by-side, that was kind of crazy. So, the reward in moving into another shop was just, and knowledge was crazy, because now I learned how to lift trucks, lower trucks, air suspensions. We got into so much other stuff, spraying bed liners. I can spray a bed liner like a beast. So like everything else that I've learned along the way in managing other stores and working at other stores, aside from tinning, has also been incredible. But in the beginning, it started with tinning, and now there's a lot more on it. But the big base will always be tinning, and I'll always be known as Trey Tints. I'm not Trey the bed liner guy or Trey the truck guy. Everybody knows me for the tinting. That's just probably what I wouldn't want it any other way, actually.
So name your company. First of all, that's a really beautiful story. And I mean, I feel like usually when kids are, like you said, when kids are typically, it comes out of like boredom. When you're not like necessarily the best kid, it's like you just need to be engaged. You just have like a lot of ambition probably, and your mind's going, and you want to do things, and it just has to be pointed in the right direction.
I wanted to do everything. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So the name of your company, Ohio Valley Autosport. So you said tint is obviously like what you're known for, but it's not the only thing you do. What percentage of, like, you do other services now other than tinting? And if so, what percentage is tinting compared to the rest?
Absolutely. I do like right now, I probably do 50% tinting, 50% remote starters. In the winter time, that's the remote starters. The undercoating and rust proofing and detailing, those things kind of pick up a little bit more in the spring and in the fall, but in the winter time, We don't do a lot of much but remote starts, and we still do a lot of tint. And it's kind of crazy because 5, 10 years ago, everybody was scared to get their cars tinted when it was freezing outside. We've learned ways to get a lot more water out, and with the better films and quicker drying process and things now, we just don't have the problems that we had 10 years ago. So that really helps, and the fact that that's the other reason why my businesses I have set it up the way I have with the other accounts. My store is, I can book enough work for a guy for 40 to 50 hours, but I'm the kind of guy that can do 40 50 hours work in 10 to 20 hours. So as far as spending a whole week there, it would be a waste of my time, and I wouldn't really be putting 100% effort out. So what I've done is I've got in these other stores, out of my market, where I'm subcontracting window film and vinyl wraps and clear bras, anything on the sticky stuff. I don't do remote starts or anything like that at the other places, but just with the film in other films, I do that. I do a 3M store that's about an hour away, and then there's another store that's about an hour away up in Pittsburgh that they do. It's a pretty high-end store, and I do all their window film there 2 days a week. So I've divided up my schedule in blocks to where no matter what, I'll be tinting, full time. I can tint year round full time and not have to do all that other stuff. But the other stuff is just an added business that works. But I keep it small enough right now that I have a helper, 2 guys that come in the springtime to do a lot of the detailing and the grunt work and the dirty work, But as far as the window tinting, I'm the only tinter. I'm the only one that does remote starts. My wife does a lot with phones and customers and Facebook and social media marketing and things like that. But when as far as my business as a whole, most of it is right now is wholesale, because I'm in such a small town and such a small market that I said that if I would just rely on my store right now, we would be starving. So we have 12,000 people in town, just so you get a figure as to how big the city is. There's 12,000 people, which is not super small. I've lived in smaller towns. This town I grew up in was way smaller, but at the same time, it's not a town that has been, because I've only been here 3 years. Let's back up a little bit. We've been here 3 years now. My reputation in 3 years has grown obviously dramatically and really, really rapidly. But the cool thing here is I knew that in the first 3 to 5 years, it was going to be a really, really hard struggle to open a business in a small town and make it and be successful. The percentage of people that do that is very, very low. So I didn't want to necessarily rely on that small town to pay my bills and pay the shop bills and provide a decent life for my family, and I didn't want my family to suffer and have to suffer through me being broke for the first 3 to 5 years, 5 to 7 years, while we get this thing going and rolling. My wife works, but at the same time, it's not her responsibility to carry us either. So what I did was I reached out. There's a lot of guys who do mobile tint, and I never wanted to be classified as a mobile guy, but some guys classify me as a mobile guy. But anyways, I'm not a mobile guy, but I've established myself at my place, and then an hour away in two different directions. Those stores are both way away from each other. They're worlds apart. So their customers never interfere. I don't have one guy's customers that, I can get the same tint from the same guy, and then it turns into a price war, because nobody wins there. So I kept them far apart, and I have another one that we're adding, which is really exciting because it is in a town that I do already have a reputation in. I worked there for about 5 years, and it's a really big town. So I'm really excited about that. It's not quite as big as Pittsburgh, but it's not far off from it. There's about 2 million people up in Youngstown, and we're going to add a new account there here over the next 2 weeks or so. And we have a new location that we're moving to here in town for our Ohio Valley Autosport location. So there's definitely a lot going on this year. It's going to be exciting. But we never wanted to rely on East Liverpool and the small town to carry the entire load of opening a business and all of that. So basically, what I've done is establish some accounts so they can carry the load and make sure that I stay busy even when, while I get it going, and then I can drop off accounts as Ohio Valley Autosport gets bigger and busier and bigger and busier, and it can actually develop enough work to keep me busy for a whole week. Then I can spend the whole week there.
Got it. So you mentioned your wife works with you. Does she work with you full time? Does she work a separate job as well, or is it just with your company?
She works full time. She actually just finished school, and for the last 2.5 years, she's been in school, and now she works at a surgical unit. She's a surgical assistant, and she does that full time. So her help with Ohio Valley Autosport isn't as much as it used to be, but like today she was off, so she spent some time with me and doing some things, and she goes to Tint off, and she's definitely very active in my business and in helping and keeping things going for sure. But she definitely works a full-time job as well, and that takes a lot too. So
for sure. So I'm curious, one of the topics that comes up, it's a topic that was posted in one of the Facebook groups, I think Window Film Pros recently, but I'm not sure. They're all great. And we touched on this on the last video on Tuesday, and I'm curious, how was that, working with a spouse? What challenges did you kind of run into, or what successes, how was that? Do you recommend it? Do you love it? Is it the best thing ever, or what do you think?
I saw that, and now that you say that, I'm completely remembering what you're referencing to, and I think that it's really about your relationship. Personally, my relationship with my wife is where she's everything I'm not, and I'm everything she's not. We are exact opposites of each other as far as in the way we do everything, the way we carry ourselves. Literally, we are almost exact opposites. But so we clash a lot because we can never agree on a lot wholeheartedly, because we just see everything from an exact opposite perspective. So that's been great as far as we respect each other enough to we've never ever had any issues as far as her being involved in the business or even doing work together, going on jobs together. Even if we were fighting or having issues at home and we had to go on a job together, never once would anybody ever have a clue.
Really?
I think that having going to the Tint off, the best score that I ever had was the 1 year that my wife was with me. So, in everything that I do, keeping her involved in it has been a priority, not just because it helps everything, it's less that I have to do, but it genuinely actually helps. It helps me see things I wouldn't normally see, be prepared for things I wouldn't be prepared for. Just because she's so different and sees things so differently than I do, mm-hmm. Her opinion is one that I always have to consider, and I always have to step back and think a minute, wait a minute, So the way that me and her interact is different than a lot of couples. I know that I need her to help me get things done. I don't have room to worry about anything petty or not petty. It's just the reality is that I need her to do what I need her to do. And she knows that, and I know that, and she knows that I respect her for it. We just work well together. We work better together than we live together. So if that's any depiction as far as illustration, as far as how our situation is, at work, you could have a TV show and it wouldn't offend anyone or anything. People would be like, wow, you wouldn't think that we were a couple,
That's incredible.
Work is work.
That's incredible because really, speaking from experience, it's not necessarily even, your spouse's fault in any way, in any such scenario. It's just sometimes the stress of the business, can just stress you out, potentially stress, and then that then kind of pours
Absolutely.
over to stress somebody else out, even if it's not because you're taking it out on them in any way, but just because they feel the stress that you're taking on. You tend to take on the stress that you see your partner taking on, just
Absolutely.
automatically.
And that is, when me and Jessica first got together, the this business is hit and miss a lot. A lot of guys will have months where they just don't have a good month. We did like 4 cars this month and it really hurt. And that's really hard for a lot of the people to really not only take, but deal with, cover. When I come to her and I say, Jess, I need you to buy the film this week, you know, that's not easy, for me to do as a man, first of all, for me to go to her and say, I need your help. I need you to buy my tent because I paid the electric bill, you know. So then a lot of couples, when the number one problem usually when it's in that deal is the business was slow. Dude had to spend money he needed to spend, or girl, whatever. The tinner had to spend money that they needed to spend on film. The wife, husband, whoever's not tinting is worried about the phone bill that's not going to get paid now. And it
Right.
turns into a big issue because we don't have a tent. A lot of us don't have a $12 or $20 an hour punch a time card. We can get 40 hours a week and we have this guaranteed income.
Right.
A lot of guys just make what they make and that's it. If you're
Yep.
a tinner that's freelance and you don't work for a company, or you work for a company that's small or struggling or that isn't really successful year round, not having that's hard on I've had several relationships. I even said this in that post, several relationships in the past that didn't work out, mainly because of that, because the slow times were just way too much, way too long. After 5, 7, 10 years of the same slow times that come every February, it's stressful on a couple, and it really wears people out, and it's tough. It's really tough. And I'm really blessed when it comes to where I came from, how I got here, and the people that are around me now, the support that I have around me, the people that follow me from all over the place. And when I get a new subscriber on YouTube that's from somewhere in the middle of nowhere in Abu Dhabi, Africa, or Australia, or something crazy, like, who would ever thought that I was going to end up being this guy? This was going to be me. Everything's so amazing, and I'm so blessed with everything that's going on. That, especially the people around me now and the support that I have, that's really the difference maker. So,
How long have you been
I
doing
think that
YouTube?
it's
Oh, sorry to cut you
her
off.
relationship. I don't do a whole lot of YouTube, but I did do a couple training videos on shaving when shaving was kind of really starting to get popular, and um, did a couple challenge videos and things like that. But I've only have about 6 or 8 YouTube videos maybe, and they've been up for about 3 or 4 years. So I haven't been on the YouTube train as long as some people, and I'm not as active as most, but we'll get there. Once we get the new shop set up, actually, I plan on when the tint bay is going to be designed with audio and video so that we can do a lot more in-depth online training.
Smart.
And not only that, but like have a friend in, Buddy Mitchell, that is doing a mirror on a car and having a problem. He can Skype me and I can literally do what I'm telling him on video, and help him get through something. And, that and the training videos and all that I want to do. I want to get more into teaching people how the techniques that I do work more than I've done some videos on explaining the technique and how to do them, but I really want to get more in depth with how to not, like, because we're not shaving a lot anymore. I haven't shaved a window in, I don't know, months at least, maybe years. But even then, only in a like correctional fashion. I never have to shave an entire edge anymore. I haven't shaved an entire edge in probably the better part of a decade, because what I do now, my cut on the outside is so close that at most I might have to touch up a spot on the inside, but usually it looks shaved even though it's not, and I don't have to necessarily pull the panels and do everything. And the reason why I got so interested in matching that edge on two stage as, you know, panel pulling or bottom loading in any form is because I didn't want to, you can't bottom load at the tint off. And then I started to think about the whole why you can't bottom load at the tint off. And the reason why you can't bottom load is because it's in the rules that you can't pull the sills. So not that you can't bottom load, excuse me, because there are people that do bottom load, but they put a lot of slip in their slip. And I don't put a lot of slip in my slip. Like I put a very, very small amount. So when I stick the window, a lot of times, more often than not, like I'll be fighting it because it's trying to stick too fast. So I can't really do that whole swoop it down in there slickness thing that a lot of guys got going on. It's really cool. And I definitely think it's awesome to be able to put the window down in there in one piece and not pick up anything, but never learned to master that. And all the techniques that I have learned, I never did master that one. And so I learned how to match the edge and get right on the edge on the two stage, and then a nice little tuck job on the bottom. Because the point of that at the tint off was so that they asked themselves, probably, I would imagine, do you have to take a door panel off to tint the window? No. Do you have to pull the sill to tint the window? No. It definitely makes it harder to do it perfect without pulling the sill. So that would make it more difficult, which would separate the competition. Obviously, if every guy at the tint off could pull the sills, they'd have a really hard time separating 120 window tinters from who's the best one here. You know, if everybody could make it that easy on themselves, they would all be perfect or very, very, very close to it. So we'd be there for months trying to figure out who was better than the other one, because there'd be a lot of ties.
Are you going to be competing this year in Orlando?
Absolutely.
How many times have you competed in the past?
I've done 4 since 16. I've been doing it. I did San Antonio, then West Palm Beach, then San Antonio again, and then Indianapolis.
And a lot of people get bent out of shape at the tint off. You know, I feel like everybody goes in there and they're just like, hey, I'm an awesome tinter. I'm just going to win this thing. And, you know, maybe they don't realize how many like little rules there are that maybe, you know, that. Is there anything that stood out to you that if you could tell day one Trey at the first tint off that you attended, like, hey, this is what you need to know, what would that be? You don't have to limit it to one if you got a few.
I would say that the weirdest thing about the tint off in my experience is that there's always something that you don't expect. Always. And it's not necessarily always something that's pre-staged by the staff. Like they threw an extra window in on us this year. Or last year. That was crazy. A lot of us have a way that we do a tint off window versus not necessarily versus doing a car at the shop, but you have, you know, time that you take, things that you do. Like me personally, I usually clean the window 3 or 4 times. You know, I put extra time into things where I wouldn't normally, just to be extra thorough, because this is for, you know,
right,
all the marbles, you know, so you're going to put everything into that window to make sure that it's absolutely the best that you can make. And the year 2, when I peeled my clear, literally the minute I flipped the corner up to lift it off the car, the AC vent above me kicked on, and you can, like, it literally, my tint took off like a kite. Like, there's always something that you don't expect that's gonna throw you a loop, and you literally have to make it as simple as possible for yourself. As few steps as possible. Don't add all that extra stuff. Just focus on getting the window on. And if you're really good, it should be clean anyways. Just get the thing on there and get the door cleaned and get everything cleaned. Because that's another thing that you did, like first year, you didn't really think about how long it takes to detail a door panel after you tinted the window. Because it's not like you can just wipe off the door panel and call it a win. You have to get every little bit of water out of everything, or mask the door panel beforehand. There's other stuff that you wouldn't normally encounter at the shop where it's going to cost you points that's going to cost you the final. If you lose more than 15 points, you're not making the final. 20 points tops. You got to get over 200 or you're not making the final. And out of 225, for those who don't know. So anything, the average really high score is about anything over 210 is incredible. Like literally, the average guy wouldn't be able to find a plum on a 210. It would look absolutely perfect. So you get at the tin off, you got to expect things that you wouldn't normally encounter, and there's a lot of them. So watch every heat you could beforehand and hope you don't get thrown in the first one the first time, because then you kind of got to go at it blind. That's no fun at all. The first one I did, I watched a bunch of videos on YouTube of guys that had done tin offs in their heats and things like that. And so I thought going into it that I had a grasp as to what I was getting into. And I didn't finish my first tin off. I didn't complete my window. I ran out of time in the end, and I ended up with like a 156 or really low, like it was a really tragic score or whatever it was. Nowhere near anything great, and it was just that I didn't plan on little things that held me up to the way, I got stuck in a corner, or I saw this little thing I didn't like, so I had to work on this for a minute, kind of hide it or whatever, or heat it up. And if you don't get any of those things, that's great. But going to a tin off where before I started doing tin offs, I was pull every sill, pull a door panel if I have to. I didn't care what I had to do to make it as easy as possible so that I could ensure that it would be as perfect as possible. So I could, most people will tell you that a lot of my work is perfect, and obviously perfect is, arguable. But to the average person, if you pull the sill and do bottom loading, it's going to turn out a lot nicer than if you try to stage it and you get the kinks in the corners, or you get, you're trying to make a window that's bigger than your hole you're putting it in, try and tuck below the sills, back in the corners. That was the problem at the second tin off. My window was amazing. I got it done in time. And if you stuck a card in the front quarter, like the front behind the mirror, and you looked at it just in a certain way, you could barely see the card. They dinged me 30 points. 30 points. The window was even, like, if you just looked at it straight on, it was perfect. Yeah. Even the first judge, I had somebody watch the judging. Obviously, you're not allowed to watch the judging. Right. So, but you're allowed to have somebody, your friend, your buddy, your wife, somebody is allowed to watch your window be judged by the judges. Mm-hmm. So the person that was watching it for me told me that the first judge said literally out of his mouth, my window was perfect. And it wasn't until the third judge stuck the white card in the corner that they found that little tiny sliver of card and dinged me 30 whole points. And I've yet to make a final. That year I was 1 point or 2 points. It was a really low number out of the final. It was really depressing because I actually finished 13th overall, tied for 13th overall. And the top 12 were the finalists. So that was kind of a kick in the butt. But
have you made it to the finals after that?
No, I have still yet to make the final. I went after that we went. That was the year before last, and then this year we went to Indianapolis, and they threw an extra window in on us, and I don't want to make an excuse because I should have been prepared for that. Like I said, you got to be prepared for things that you wouldn't normally be prepared for. So they threw an extra window in there for us. So we had the quarter window and the big window, and they didn't add any extra time. And again, they went, like what I said before, that was all to make it. It helps to separate the competition. I understand that now. Right. Now looking out, a lot of us in the first heat were really mad because a lot of people didn't finish.
when I was walking out, there was only 3 sheets on tables that actually people completely finished their installation with no hangups or nothing. They were done and ready to go when she announced that the heat was over. There was 22 people in that heat. So the other 19 people that didn't get finished or all the way finished, there were some of us like me. I got everything done at the last second. She started counting down, so I literally took all my tools and threw them under the table. And the only thing I didn't get done was physically putting my sheet over my stuff. So, but when we came back in, the sheets were all over all the tables. So, one time, or maybe even more than once, in a meeting, the girls that run the show said that if we were at the point to where they could tell we were all done and the only thing we didn't get done was the sheet, a lot of times they'd put the sheets on the tables for us. So when we come back in and I saw the sheet on the table, I thought, great, because that's the only thing I have left to do. So you could kind of think that my score shouldn't have been too terrible. And it actually wound up being almost as bad as that one that I told you was really terrible in the beginning. I don't actually have an explanation for how they got a 157 or whatever it was out of that window or those windows. I did have a little tiny kink where on that front quarter window when we were 14 minutes into the heat when I started the little window, and I still had to cut it, put it on, and clean up and get done. And so in 6 minutes, but when I was putting it on, I'll tell you, my slip solution kind of bites me in the ass sometimes with being too tacky. So it grabbed, and I had to lift it, and where I lifted it, you could see a little line like where it stuck almost like it was creased, but it was just really a lift line. But I saw it in it when after she said 20 and I walked by my windows and I was looking at it, I saw it and I was like, geez, well, hopefully it don't hurt me too bad on that. But that certainly wasn't 80 point or 75 points worth of damage. But at the same time, those windows were crazy as far as if you were told beforehand that you're going to have to do 2 windows in 20 minutes and these are the windows, and you learned about that 6 months before a tint off, well, then you could go, okay, well, at work one day, I'm going to see how long it takes me to do a door and a quarter. But if you had never tried to do that before, why would you know?
Right.
So when you look at, if you're a guy that plans timing and in this competition, you got 20 minutes. So you can say, okay, if I spend 3 minutes on cleaning, I can spend 10 minutes on cutting and installation. Then I have 7 minutes left to clean up, get done, and go over and touch up. And you can plan out how you're going to do everything. So then you get there, and then they added this whole extra window in. Well, that's a whole nother cut, a whole nother clean. So you can blend those together, which knowing now what I didn't know then, I would have cut them both at the same time and cleaned them both at the same time, then installed them both at the same time, and would have handled the situation differently, obviously, hindsight 2020. But at the same time, if you're there in a competition, this is the best in the world. For whatever year it is, you're going to be the best in the world 2020. And they had to find a way to separate. A lot of guys are really good at this stuff.
For sure.
Anybody at that, almost not anybody, but almost anybody at that competition could win that competition. It's that kind of competition where it's whoever had the best day. And, there's my buddy Park, he won not long ago, and it's funny because when he showed up, I remember I didn't even know who he was. I never met him before in my life. I saw him on social media, but when I saw him at the tint off, it didn't ding in my head who he was. So, and one of the guys that was sitting there was like, oh my gosh, Park's here. We all might as well go home. I'm like, this dude is a dude. No disrespect, Mr. Park. I love you. I love you. But this dude is a dude. He's a man. There's nothing that man can do that no other man can, learn how to do or even do better. To think of another man as intimidating, just that this never happened to me, because I've never been that way. So long and the short, though, at the tint off, anything can happen, and if you're not prepared, if you're ready. This year, the game plan is, I'll throw this out there a little
cookie. This year, the game plan is let's figure out a way to get one window on in 10 minutes and done in 10 minutes, so that if there's another window or if I need to redo that window, instead of making sure that I am done in 20 minutes, let's make sure that we're done in 10 minutes so that we can do it again if we have to. And so we're going to throw a different spin in it. But if I was to give somebody tint off advice, it would be to bring a stopwatch and expect anything, because that's what it's going to be.
Well, I mean, I really want to commend you for your attitude with the whole thing, because, you know, you did it 4 times. You didn't make the finals. There's no like, you have no bitterness in your voice. There's no anger. There's no nothing. And it's just, hey, you're going to be back for the 5th year and you're going to do it again. And I mean, I have this feeling that you're going to be in the finals this year because, you know, you have that experience under your belt. And like, I just feel like that whole thing that we just talked about, it like translates into business, because it's the same thing. It's like a tenacity. It's a right attitude. It's a, hey, you can knock me down and I'm going to come back, and I'm going to come back again. I'm going to come back again. And then eventually I'm going to be the most experienced and I'm going to win this thing. And like, that's,
Absolutely.
you know, I think that's awesome.
That's how my whole business and career has actually been. You know, from the start, I wasn't going to be the tinner. I was going to be the radio guy, and they were going to tolerate me as long as they could. And then hopefully I moved on to something else in the world and got out of their way, because I wasn't pleasurable at all. Obviously, I was a mess. But it transitioned into being something that if I would have had anything else at the time, I would have probably put something into it. And I may have not. But since I didn't have anything else and I knew I had nothing else, and this was something they said I couldn't have, I wanted it and I wasn't going to give up on it. I knew that if another guy could learn how to do it, I could learn how to do it, because I wasn't broken. I was just as smart as the smart kids. I was just as fast as the fast kids. There's no reason why. I have no excuse. So in the tint off and losing 4 tint offs and not making the final 4 years in a row, no, I'm not bitter at all. Not even a little bit. Actually, last year was a lot of guys were really bitter, and I wasn't. I was more like, you know, this is a competition for the best in the world. They got to do something to create a little separation.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, it was, I should have been prepared. I should have been more ready. I'm not bitter at the competition at all. I'm bitter at me because I'm the one that did the windows and wasn't ready for 2 windows. So this year I'll be ready for 2 windows or 3 windows or what. We want to tint the whole car. Well, there's a video of me on YouTube tinting a whole car in 20 minutes.
Can you imagine this year if everybody walks in there and all it is Tesla Model 3s and the job is to tint the back window? Like, what a
50% of them are going to be heartbroken. 50%
I would like, or you know what, even
really
worse, could you imagine a Model X windshield? If it's a Model X windshield, I mean, I feel like that would be the ultimate like troll type of scenario for them to put in, because I don't even know if that's how many people can do a Model X windshield as one person, you know, without an extra hand.
I don't. The same with like it was funny when my recent stint down in Miami, I did a transit windshield. Mm-hmm. That's a
big
lot
windshield.
of film.
Yeah.
And when they told me that we had to do the windshield, I had not done that windshield before, but I was thinking in my head, I was like, I think that's a really, really big windshield. So then the band pulls in, and I'm like, you know, like, this is going to end well. I have no helper here on Saturday. It's just me. Okay, whatever. I'm not going to not get it done, you know. So I cut it out, shrink it. And about the time I literally get it in the van, get it on the windshield, here comes the owner walking in, who's also a tinner, who could have helped me if I had known he was going to be there in 10 minutes. I would have waited, but I had already got that big monster windshield on, and he had come to help me put that windshield on. So that was the funny thing, that I already had it on and not knowing that he was coming to help. But yeah, that would be definitely a good test. There's a lot. I wish that they said that they threw a teaser at us this last year at the tint off. They told us we were going to do windshialds in the final,
right.
And I was really excited because I do a lot of windshields. Like, I do a lot. Like, I guarantee you, I do at least 5 a month.
sometimes 10, 15, 20 a month in the summer. Like, it gets crazy. Like, sometimes I'll do 5 windshields in a day. So, yeah, windshields were, when they said we were going to do windshields at the tint off, I got super excited because, well, most tinners don't get to do that many windshields. And like you said, the experience that's what's kept me ahead of this whole thing, just the volume of cars that I do, because I serve 4 different cities and 4 different counties. The volume of cars that I turn over, I can do, 50 to 70 car weeks in December and January. That's, most guys can't, they have a hard time doing a 50 car week in June. So spreading yourself out and getting those reps, that's what's going to really bring long-term success, is doing them, just getting more. The more times you do something, the better you're going to be at it. Absolutely.
Yep. So I'm going to jump into the comments real quick. We have, thanks for everybody watching, everybody who's leaving comments. Mike Powell, I don't know how deep we should get into this, but Mike Powell said, well, all I can say is all I can say is what you did with me, the cowboy. Maybe we can have a chance to speak this year. Great feed, bro. And then, so, he's referring to the cutout, to the Film Slingers cutout at the competition. Mike Powell's a freaking amazing dude. And another thing he mentioned was, everybody getting together at this tint off in Orlando so we can all meet everyone. That was actually when I had a chance to meet Mike Powell. I didn't get a chance to meet you, kind of a shy type in person. And I'm really looking forward to this Orlando tint off. So for everybody, if you're kind of considering going, go. This is the time. Set the days apart. Even if you're not going to compete, go meet everybody, meet your manufacturers, walk the booths, have a good time, because it really is, like, I feel like, I think the best event of the year. I like it better than SEMA.
Even if I didn't compete, I would go. Even if I didn't compete, I would absolutely go to the tint off. Even now, if I broke my arms and I couldn't compete, I would still go. The relationships and the friendships I've made, the knowledge that I've learned, that's the thing with me, is that's why I didn't take last year is salty or grainy. I took it as, a learning experience for me. It's nothing, everything is along the path like that. Every time I've been told no or not one or not, it's just been reason for me to learn to be better, reason for me to learn to be faster. It's all been motivation for me to be a better tinner. And that transitioned to me in my personal life. I really look at my work and I'm honest with myself about my work, where I can improve, how I can improve it. But all that, in your personal life, if you have those same standards in your work life, you're going to have, success, and you're going to do well, but if you don't have those same standards in your personal life, and your personal life's a mess, you probably leave some trash in your windows. Mike, I'm really looking forward to meet you too. I'm glad you didn't take the joke as anything like a shot. It was just a joke, and that was having fun at the tint off. It was really cool to see your cowboy cutout, cowboy from Texas. So that was really, really cool. I really liked your logo, and glad you didn't take it as a shot, man. I'm excited to meet you too.
So Maverick asked when the tint off in Orlando, Florida is. It is September 22nd through the 24th. I believe that's a Wednesday through a Friday. And then Justin Lee asked, is there a certain hotel everyone's staying at? Justin, I think, I believe it's in Orlando. It's at the convention center. And I do believe there is a specific hotel designated for everybody to stay at, like a discounted rate type of deal. So I'm not sure off the top of my head what that is, but if you look into the event details, I'm pretty sure I saw it already in there. So I would recommend staying there because, do you have it nearby? You're saying you have?
I have a recommendation. The tint off, they have a host hotel that is usually not the best deal in town. It is a deal, it's a package deal, so it's a percentage off of whatever their deal is. But like last year, for instance, just for those who, I'm not biased in any way. I'm not pulling for anyone or pushing against anyone. But at the same time, I stayed at the Johnson Inn.
Howard Johnson. It was a former Hilton. It was literally probably the nicest hotel anywhere near the building that the Tint Off was in, the convention center. I paid $70 a night because it's not in during season of any kind of event or anything like that. So they have promotions where they're actually trying to give rooms away just to keep somebody in them. The host hotel for the event is not like that. They know that there's an event that week. They're charging premium rate, and they're going to give a deal off that premium rate. So usually you can find a better deal on a hotel that's really close and not pay 100. And like last year, everybody paid 120 or 130 a night for the La Quinta, and they had to pay extra for a microwave, and the rooms didn't come with microwaves. Like, it wasn't the best deal. You could have got a better deal without even trying.
The only thing about that is, deal aside, you're 100% right on the deal. The only thing is if the couple, if the difference in money isn't too significant, I feel like there is the benefit of kind of everybody being in the same hotel, because you do run into people in the lobby, you run into them in the elevator. It's a little shorter trip back and forth from the event. So like there is that benefit, but definitely, it's definitely, you're right. It's definitely not the best deal in town for sure. There's a lot of options, especially in Orlando.
Definitely, and I agree. They post the results in the lobby at the host hotel. They don't run around and post one at every hotel in town. So, you either have to go over to the host hotel. You're going to spend time at the host hotel when you're at the Tint Off, most likely, if you're interacting in a Tint Off other than just walking around seeing the show. So if you're competing, or you really want to, get all that you can out of going to a Tint Off your first couple of years or something like that, staying at the host hotel, I definitely recommend, just because, like I said, the biggest part about going to Tint Off for me is meeting Mr. Park and the relationship I've made with him, and, the relationship with Mitchell Goldman and, Angel Ledesma. There's so many, Chris Queen. I could name people for days.
Scooter Gang.
That just, yeah. Exactly. I can name people for days that are in the Scooter Gang, and really just amazing guys that whenever I need to talk to somebody, or I need something, or I need information, a technique that I want to try. Mike Sanchez, he's never shy about tagging me or commenting. I would have never met Mike Sanchez if I never went to a Tint Off. We wouldn't be friends. Me and Mitchell would never be friends. I would never met you. Going to a Tint Off is more about expanding your network and knowing more people and being more involved in what's going on in other areas of the country, in your business, in your field. Going to Tint Off is so much more than just competing. Like, the knowledge that you get out of going and just walking around and talking to the tent booths and all the other booths, the sales guys and the managers and engineers that design the stuff. And I mean, you can meet some pretty impressive, crazy, incredible people. So the knowledge that you get out of conversations with those people is worth more than anything you could ever win at the Tint Off. So going to the Tint Off is definitely worth it. Staying at the host hotel is not necessarily a bad thing, but at the same time, like I say, if you can spend less money and get a nicer hotel, usually, if you don't want to be surrounded, if you're going to the Tint Off as a spectator and not a competitor, and getting to know other tinters isn't your goal, I wouldn't stay at the host hotel, because that's not really going to benefit you much.
So actually, window tinting business, which is Patrick just said that the host hotel is the Rosen Plaza Hotel and the Rosen Center Plaza. So again, when
those are both really nice hotels, actually.
Yeah, I've never been, but
I'll give them that. No, I've been to Orlando quite a bit, bouncing all around South Florida. I did a little stint down in Orlando, and then I did one in, 2 in Miami. I did a little bit up in Clearwater and Bradenton area, up in Alabama for a spring break, and Louisiana for 3 years. I've been kind of all over that Texas to Miami region. There isn't much in between that I haven't really been involved in, or more than once. I've been to New Orleans probably 100 times. So getting out there and getting involved in the tint off is what opened all those doors. Because Danny Shenko, the owner of those tint worlds, would have never known who I was if I never went to a tint off. You know, it opens so many doors for you that you just don't even realize. So,
Right. Yep.
Really cool.
Patrick also said they don't post the results anymore. They only do it online now. I wouldn't want to piss off 100,
last year.
100 who are trained well with using a knife. That's hilarious.
What was it?
He said he wouldn't. He said they probably do it online now. They don't do it at there. They do it online, so they're not pissing off 100 people who are well trained with a knife.
Absolutely. And I think that's what happened was the year before last, they put an end to it because by the time they posted,
it's a riot,
they're supposed
probably
to post it at like 10 or something. So we all go to the lobby at 10 and we're sitting at the bar, you know, 250 tinners are drunk, wasted, waiting on somebody to be announced as a finalist. Like, by the time they post them, you're already either wound up or ready to go to bed. You're somewhere in between. You're definitely not stable, you know, and they're going to post results that, yeah, you probably shouldn't get in a not stable condition if you're not one of the people on the list. So, yeah, it was bad. So last year they did it online only. And actually it was way faster because they didn't have to make the paper or plaque. Or the year before they had a plaque. So like by the time they made the plaque and everything, got the plaque out and put it up and all that, like they could have posted it online 4 hours before that. So I think that was just another solution to a whole lot of problems.
You know, and one of the things that I kind of discovered at the end of last year's tint off that I highly recommend everybody, and that wasn't my first tint off. I went years without knowing about it. I don't know how long it existed, but you know, the tint off does put out an app. And that app is really like, if you want to know what's going on when, you have to have that app. If you don't have that app, like it kind of goes by, and there's a lot to the tint off. The other thing that I feel like I missed out, I continue to miss out. This year, I'm determined not to miss out on all the different like speaking events and so on. Yeah, that app is clutch. And don't wait till you're at the event. Download it a few days before. And you know, you're going to find out about these speaking events, and I do believe you have to register. You have to pay. It's like a separate entrance from the regular convention to be able to get to those speaking events. Those speaking events, those roundtables are like super valuable as well. And you won't know they're happening if you don't have the app, and you won't have permission. You won't have admission to get in if you don't plan a little bit in advance. So definitely recommend getting that app.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, the app keeps you alerted, like when you're supposed to be somewhere too, which is really cool because, like me, like I told you before, when my wife's there, that's what she does. She makes sure I'm where I'm supposed to be. She makes sure I got my name tag. She does all the life stuff so that I don't have to. I worry about putting a window on, and making sure that it's a great window. You know, that app. If it wasn't for that app, I would have never made it through last year's tint off. There's no way, because I didn't have my wife, and without her and no app, there's no way that I would have made it. I would have been disqualified for being late.
So Jaron Payne asked, how do you guys price a job? I've got some commercial buildings to do, big windows. How does a man price those? Is there a software? Yes, there's a software, Jaron. It's called Tint Wiz. But if you don't have Tint Wiz, you can also do that by hand. You can, you just have to go in there. You have to measure the windows, width times height by quantity by width times height, or width times height by quantity. That's, and then you can do that in inches, divide it by 144. You'll get the square feet. And then you start to figure out, your waste, and you price it accordingly. So you could definitely do that with an app like Tint Wiz, or you can do that with a piece of paper, whatever works for you. And Rodney asked, who's the eldest at the tint off? I have no idea, but that's a good question. Curious.
That's a really good question.
And I mean, not just by, I don't know how if he meant by age or by experience at the tint off. I would imagine experience at the tint off, but either way, good question. I wonder who's competed the most amount of times and how that's gone.
I know one person that I know that has been at 9 tint offs. And I know another guy that's well over 10 or 11, somewhere in there. So there's some guys that have been doing the tint off for a long time, and some of those guys have never made a final either. So it's not really heartbreaking to be a 4-year non-finalist. That's pretty common, actually. So
what's the name of the app? It's because I remember searching like window film convention. I found it, but Jaron just asked, or Justin Lee asked, what's the app called? So I mean, everybody could just get it now.
One is AGW for Auto Glass Week. W/WFCT, Window Film Conference and Tint Off. So it's AGW/WFCT. That is the app for the Tint Off itself. Window Film Magazine also has its own app, which also has a lot of Tint Off information in it as well. So I have both, but the AGW WFCT is the app that has the reminders, the schedulers that you log into, that when they need to alert you as far as the Tint Off committee, they need to alert you of anything, or the staff, they can send you messages and things like that through that app.
Nice. So might be a good place to wrap it up. I really appreciate you doing this, Trey. I really look forward to seeing you. Yeah, I mean, you rushed from work to get this done, so I really appreciate you, carving this into your schedule. Obviously, thank you to everybody who watched as well and always watches, leaves comments and so on. Mike Powell just making me laugh because he just said, we're talking about downloading the app for the Window Tint Convention. He said, download the Lime app also for the scooters, just saying. I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a great
get
point.
it while you can in case you don't have Wi-Fi or service or something.
So
you're going to need that.
Yeah, and once you get into the actual convention, different convention centers have different setups, but usually because there's so many people in a concentrated area, it actually can become difficult to get an internet connection. So you definitely want to have that sort of thing taken care of beforehand, because you might find yourself annoyed trying to download it. But speaking of connections, next Tuesday and Thursday, I'm going to be at the Hooper Optic window film. They have like a dealer meeting, a yearly dealer meeting. This is their 20-year anniversary. They're doing it on a Royal Caribbean cruise. So I'm looking forward to see what the internet is like on that cruise in the middle of the sea on the way to Mexico. And but either way, I can guarantee you there will be a video on Tuesday and Thursday. So, I hope to see everybody then. And Trey, we'll definitely do another video if you're down when we're in Orlando, but I hope to see you before then as well.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Cool. Well, thanks again.
Have a good night, man. And I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for everybody for watching. Thank you, Trey. See you soon.
Thank you. Shout out. Goodbye.
Bye.